While Alien Covenant resolved some of the questions we had after watching Prometheus, it threw up plenty of its own. Here are the ones we're still thinking about long after watching the movie. At the end of Prometheus, David promises to take Elizabeth to the Engineers' homeworld, but upon arrival, he proceeds to eradicate our creators, dropping thousands of canisters of black goo on them. David acts like he's eradicated an entire species, but are we supposed to believe this relatively small city is the full extent of such an advanced civilization? I mean, this is a species capable of intergalactic travel, seeding life across the universe. They were our gods. Is this really the end of the Engineers in this story? Sure, when in search of answers, why do they want to destroy us, their creation? If David's really wiped them out, we might never know the answer to Prometheus' closing question. Covenant reveals that David is the engineer behind the Xenomorph. He regards it as his masterpiece. But why is he creating them? Through the events of Prometheus and his decade-long isolation on the Engineer's planet, David has clearly come to regard himself as a superior being, not only to his creator, Peter Weyland, but to the race that created him, the Engineers. Through his experiments with the black goo, David is composing a symphony with DNA, becoming a new god. When asked what he believes in, he replies, creation. But still, alone on a planet, it's unclear what he hopes to achieve. What's his goal? Maybe it's just boredom, creation for creation's sake. He can't reasonably expect a suitable host is just gonna turn up. We even asked director Ridley Scott if David lured the Covenant to his planet.
Oh, I think it's a coincidence that they pick up shows. And I think I like the fact that she's on a continuum of process as any good engineer would. And during it, she's getting more and more bored, but still living in the hope that somebody might pick up a signal. She's just sending out signals.
Maybe it's as simple as idle hands being the devil's workshop, but towards the end of the movie, there is a suggestion that David's programming is unraveling. After all, for such an accomplished and cultured being, it seems strange that he's confusing Shelley with Byron. It's a line that definitely foreshadows David's creation going wrong in future films. If David created the facehugger eggs, which are capable of creating something resembling the Xenomorph from the original Alien, it's really unclear where the Queen Alien fits into all of this. I mean, there doesn't appear to be a trace of a queen within David's workshop. His experiments seem to have led him towards the facehugger. The Queen Alien was created by James Cameron and Stan Winston to up the ante in the sequel Aliens, without Ridley Scott and H.R. Giger's involvement. It's possible he's ignoring it, which seems strange for such an established and popular part of Aliens lore. Or maybe it'll be explained as an evolution of David's original design once the species takes control of its own life cycle, but right now, we've got no idea. In light of Covenant, the discovery made by the crew of the Nostromo on LV-426 becomes no less of a mystery. Within the next 20 years or so, another one of the Engineer ships has to crash onto a planet carrying thousands of David's recently created facehuggers if it's to fit in with the events of the original movie. Despite his communication at the end of Covenant, David probably isn't taking the colonists to Origai 6. Now, this is just speculation, but what if David wants to wipe out humanity, just as he's done to the Engineers? He clearly regards himself as the superior being now at work in the universe. To do so, he'd need a more sophisticated ship, a warlike vessel, and to multiply his deadly creation. So perhaps he returns to LV-223, the planet in Prometheus. This, at least, gets us closer to LV-426. He knows it functioned as a military base for the Engineers. There's more black goo there to experiment with, and spacecraft superior to the Covenant. Perhaps David used his materials here on the remaining colonists of the Covenant to refine his design, before placing his biological arsenal into one of the buried ships and heading to Earth to meet his makers. But there's still one bigger question. If David has successfully wiped out the Engineers, who's flying the ship? Who's that dude in the Engineer flight suit with a chestburster wound? In the original Alien, Dallas says it looks fossilized, but he's probably referring to what we now know to be the design of the flight suit. We've also seen Elizabeth fly in the ship without wearing one of these suits. Are the Engineers not really dead? Even though facehuggers have so far ignored inorganic life forms, is it possible the space jockey on LV-426 might even be David? This leads on nicely to the final big question. Why doesn't David's Xenomorph look like the one in the original movie? The eggs are much bigger, the chestburster looks totally different, and when fully grown, a lot of the biomechanical details are missing. The Xenomorph in Covenant is much more organic and smooth in appearance. It's close, but what if David's design is yet to be perfected? What if David figures out a way to make the black goo react with inorganic matter, incorporating himself into his own creation? That would mirror the engineer's act of sacrifice at the beginning of Prometheus and explain the origin of those mechanical elements. If you still have more questions, watch our full Alien timeline or listen to Ridley Scott explaining the origins of the Xenomorphs himself.